Welcome to the Asylum. And now, your hosts, Rick Fleeger and Rick Briggs.
One of these days we need to, rather than this drivel we're about to put out to everybody, let everybody listen to what happens before the mics go hot. That is much more entertaining. But, welcome to the Asylum Fantasy Sports Show here on the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast Network. Check out this and many other great fantasy shows over at fulltimefantasy.com, at fulltimefantasy on the Twitters, and of course you can follow us, asylumfootball.com, at asylumfootball on Twitter, and to be part of Rick Briggs' mail satchel tomorrow night, asylumfootball@gmail.com. Rick, I hate this week. I hate it. Everybody is on bye. You and I spent 45 minutes before we went on air trying to help me field a lineup this week. Not a competitive lineup,
right?
Just a lineup, just enough bodies to compete this week.
Washington, Philadelphia, New England, Jacksonville, Houston, and Denver. Boy, I tell you, that is some fantasy implications.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter if the teams stink or not. You get 6 teams on bye.
Well, it turns out I have half of my teams on Philadelphia. I didn't even realize it. How I'm 7-2 is beyond me looking at that. But bad times here at the Asylum.
Yes, indeed. We are Fleeger and Briggs. This is the Asylum Sports Show, and welcome to Week 10.
That's
already
godly unthinkable. It's snowing here in Western PA this afternoon. It's about over. It's Super Bowl's going to be in a couple of weeks here, and then what? And we're waiting for the Masters.
Yeah. Well, we'll watch Stanley Cup play. Well, Masters and Stanley Cup play on. Well, we'll have March Madness, I guess.
Yeah, that's exciting, I guess, to do that.
I like that. No doubt about it.
Well, let's get into it. So on top, Rick, of all these bye weeks, tons of injury news, lots of stuff going on. Let's start out with what I think is the biggest news, and I think the most interesting news later on, as you look at Cam Newton on IR. That surprised me. Gone for the year. What you're really curious about, and you're not going to know this offseason, what do the Carolina Panthers do, assuming Kyle Allen plays even at the level he's played to this point? It's really interesting to think about.
I don't know. I'm surmising that Cam Newton won't be a Panther after this year.
You get that vibe.
And I almost think that either A, Carolina will make a trade for a quarterback.
You think Chicago wouldn't give up a first-rounder and a second for him right this second if they could?
I don't know. I'm little...
Nagy's not an idiot. Don't forget. You always have to remember that. He's not an idiot.
Yeah, because we run the ball 7 times. No, I'm not sure that we're wrong about our assessment of Cam Newton. I'm not sure that this guy...
Maybe, yeah.
I mean, this Twitter activity, Pittsburgh ought to bring him in, and they're naming all these teams, and I'm sitting there thinking, why would Pittsburgh bring him in, number one? They got Big Ben coming back next year.
For 2 years. Cam Newton's not going to sit behind anybody for 2 years.
That's crazy. And, I mean, now that he's on IR, there's something more serious wrong with him. It's got to be. I mean, Liz Frank... I don't know.
The conspiracy theorist in me says this is just a wee too convenient. You know what I mean? It didn't seem like... Now, this is all based in nothing. This is the conspiracy theorist in me. I never had the vibe he was as seriously injured as he was when he went out, right? And he's been out for so long. And now, we're eyeing the return. And you kind of got the vibe 2 weeks ago he was going to be ready to come back, and... it wasn't quite right. He's back in the building, not quite right. Now he really looks like he's ready, and got a second opinion, no surgery, but he's going to go on IR. The conspiracy theorist in me really wonders, is there a fracture in the relationship, either with the organization, with Rivera, with something like that? Here's what I know. Somebody's going to take a chance on him. If Carolina just outright cuts him, if they can't find a trade, there'll be 18 teams crawling all over themselves to get a shot at Cam Newton. Don't know what his trade value is. I don't really care at this point. It doesn't matter. But I agree with you. I think his time in Carolina is over, and it'll be interesting to see if it's, kind of worst-case scenario, your fears, right, that he's just What's the example you always use with the quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, I just think he's just going to fall off that. Dante Culpepper.
Culpepper.
Yeah.
Whether it's that type of situation or, it was obviously he's got a lot of mileage, but he's just beat up and there's some fracture in that relationship and he's going to move on and be Cam Newton again somewhere else. Probably already the most intriguing off-season story we know.
Yeah, it truly is. And, this kind of segues into this segment. I don't know if you heard Colin Cowherd at the beginning of the week about Ben Roethlisberger. The Steelers are not in a good place quarterback-wise. Mason Rudolph isn't special.
I tend to agree with that.
I'll tend to agree.
Right now.
No, this was his whole premise of it.
Okay.
Ben Roethlisberger is old, beat up, and not special.
Old and beat up.
He says the standard, I forget exact words, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but the new quality of standard or standard of quality at quarterback now is Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson, and that type of quarterback, period.
No,
and
that's stupid.
Of course it is. Because those talents are few and far between. Why are we talking about Cam Newton like we are? Because someone like him comes along once however many years,
right,
10, 15. Mm-hmm. Right now we're just fortunate to see Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson. But Lamar Jackson really scares me. When you have 600 and some yards, I believe what it is, rushing, this is a running back.
Yeah.
What's the shelf life of a running back?
Well, it's true. It's true.
I mean, that's what scares me. I don't think that what he's trying to incur is the quality of standard or standard quality, whatever it is, the benchmark of what teams want in a quarterback. If you can get one, you're going to ride that lightning in a bottle as long as you have it.
You saw it throughout Michael Vick's career.
Exactly.
And furthermore, I don't like the comparison or the lumping together of Lamar Jackson and Deshaun Watson. Lamar Jackson is a running quarterback.
Right.
Deshaun Watson can run. I see him more as a more athletic Aaron Rodgers. A Russell Wilson type. I see him as that type. He can get out and make plays with his legs, but he can stand in there and do it. I don't know that we know if Lamar Jackson can do that yet. He can make all the throws. What we don't know is similar to a Michael Vick. And people get furious when you talk about this. And I am fully granting that Lamar Jackson may be a great NFL quarterback. He's got the big arm. His accuracy has certainly improved. I think what we don't know is there comes a point in every run-first quarterback's career where the organization, the player, where somebody says, to your point, all right, we got to back off of this. You can't have this many rushing attempts. Now, taking away the threat of that run so often changes their game. And while they may be a good pocket passer, things aren't as open. The offense doesn't work the same way when you don't have that threat of that run anymore. Like I said, I don't like the Deshaun Watson comparison. Like I said, he's a more athletic Ben Roethlisberger, Aaron Rodgers type. Russell Wilson, he's a better runner than Russell Wilson, but more similar.
He can't throw like Russell Wilson.
No, certainly not. But I don't like the Lamar Jackson comparison. What's the Watson and what Jackson? I don't
either. I agree 100%. But I just thought that was kind of because you look down through the quarterbacks. Your top quarterbacks right now: Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers, and then you're getting to Matt Stafford now.
Right.
And then your Dak Prescotts and Tom Brady's. And of course, let's not forget Pat Mahomes. There's another one.
And he's another one that you see how important his mobility is to him, but certainly not I would compare Deshaun Watson, again, more to Patrick Mahomes than I would to Lamar Jackson. But I'm beating that point to death. Rick, it's over. It's a sad, sad day. Minshew mania has come to an end. Nick Foles, after the bye this week, getting his starting gig back. Good move by the Jaguars?
Oh, I think it's the move they had to make, yeah. They brought Nick Foles in, big money. really haven't seen what he's could do yet.
I mean, what, a half? Less than a half of football?
Yeah, I think a quarter. He had 75 yards passing and a touchdown. He was fine, for the short time he was there. After that last debacle in London, I hated to see Minshew go out. Well, it's kind of like, well, yeah, I mean, he's not that good. He's exposed and so forth. Yeah, he had a bad game. But I think Foles overall deserves the job back, at least for the rest of the year.
I think you have to with that contract.
And this is the perfect time for Nick Foles.
Right.
This is when he comes in and saves the season for everybody.
That's what he does. He doesn't show up until mid-November, right. And then he does it.
So, note to Jacksonville, next year you start Gardner Minshew the first 8 or 9 weeks of the year, and then bring Nick Foles in, and he'll take you deep in the playoffs.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
It's only good. I'll be curious to see what happens with that long term. Obviously, that's a smart move now. You signed the big deal. I don't think Foles is on any type of short leash or anything. They're going to give him time to work back in. I'll be curious next year and the years going forward. Is somebody looking to move on a Minshew? Is this just a short term? I still don't feel like I know who Minshew is because I never bought in. But you look back at the numbers, you say, wow, he really is a legitimate NFL quarterback. Then you look at the record and you say, maybe not. What I'm most interested in here is another guy who's emerged, who I don't think gets talked about enough, is what Shark has done at this point. And that seems to be Minshew's guy. Will that be the same with Nick Foles? I think we just had an earthquake in the studio here.
Well, I mean, really, who else is going to be the guy for Nick Foles, really?
That's the other thing. You don't know.
Marquise Lee's long gone. D.D. Westbrook's banged up. And, Conley? I mean, he's feast or famine. Yeah. He's a Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah, he's a long touchdown or nothing type of guy. So hopefully Shark's all right. All right, Rick. Mike Tomlin optimistic James Conner's going to play this week. I'm not as optimistic, to be honest with you. There was a lot of talk last week. This was a 2 or 3 week injury. Trey Edmonds, of course, out. Doesn't affect your fantasy team, but affects the Steelers. So, from a fantasy perspective, in my opinion, with what Los Angeles does defensively, with James Conner being nicked up, if I'm a fantasy owner of Jalen Samuels, even if they tell me Sunday morning James Conner's playing, I'm still starting Jalen Samuels this week. I think he still has 10 catches this week, even with James Conner in the lineup.
It sure looks that way with Rudolph at quarterback. There's no question. Right. I put this to you. Well, I'll get to the takeaways later, so we'll do that later. So, it's going to be interesting. I think Samuels should be in there. I think he's going to get a ton of playing time. And, the way Conner runs with that shoulder, he's going to put his head down, period.
Yeah.
And you know that. So he's liable to have a little leash on his playing time.
Yeah, I would think so. So Darius Geis, Rick, activated from IR down in Washington. Of course, Washington on a bye this week. This is really, I'll tell you what, this would be popping champagne bottles for me, as someone who's held on to him way too long in way too many leagues. With Gruden getting fired and Bill Callahan taking over and his only desire being to run the football. However, with what Adrian Peterson has done in the time since this switchover was made and Bill Callahan basically wanting to play 1958 football and just get the game over with. You can tell, but did you ever notice their games end 40 minutes before any other game? His only interest is not to win, it's to run the football and get it over with as soon as reasonably possible. I'll be curious to see where Geis fits into that as we go on. I think you see him get a little bit of work building up to it. At any point does he take this work over from Adrian Peterson? Because Peterson ain't going to get hurt. He's a freaking robot. He's going to be just fine.
Yeah, I really don't know. Look, Washington's terrible. Adrian Peterson, as you mentioned, since Callahan comes back, averaging over 85 yards a game rushing. Geis certainly could be the third down guy.
Maybe.
Some pass catching things, a few runs. I'm not sure that Peterson gets benched quickly, that's for sure. But I think they'll just take a look at Geis and make sure he's okay. And, he's been kind of iffy. He come back from such a serious injury and then bang, out again.
Back at it.
And I think Peterson's still going to be the guy the rest of the year. I'm just not confident that Geis is going to come back 100%.
Yeah. All right, Rick. Patrick Mahomes back this week. Looks like Alvin Kamara is going to be back as well. David Johnson saying he's definitely playing this week, which is probably bad news for all those crazy people who played Kenyon Drake last week. I can't believe how many people played him, although it seemed like in every league I'm in, I played the guy who played Kenyon Drake seemingly out of nowhere. You wonder. I think this week's going to be telling, right? Kenyon Drake coming off that big week, David Johnson back and supposedly healthy. I think we're going to find out. I'm going to be paying attention to this week. Was he really hurt, or is there more going on? Because we speculated here last week that there might be a little something else up there.
And I'm not sure, other than volume, I'm not sure how much you'll be able to tell with this game this week against the Buccaneers. I mean, they're notorious.
Well, you don't run on the Buccaneers.
No, you're notoriously tough against all running backs so far this year. So it could be a running back by committee. They may have Johnson getting the load early or vice versa. I don't know.
Yeah,
but it'd be interesting to see.
It's going to be tough. It's hard with all these bye weeks. I think if you have one or both, you almost have to play them. But if I could avoid this situation for 1 week, I think I would do it.
Yeah, and there's something with the Cardinals. We talk about Lamar Jackson. Kyler Murray's leading the Cardinals in rushing.
Right, yeah.
There's something, the line stinks, or there's something wrong with Johnson. Of course, obviously, Drake couldn't be leading the team after one game. But there's something either wrong with Johnson, doesn't see eye to eye, with the system. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward. All right, Sunday night looks like Adam Thielen's going to be out again with that hamstring. Boy, that was a death blow to so many fantasy owners. You finally get him back last week. He lasted about 18 seconds and re-aggravated that thing, so it looks like he's going to be out. Evan Ingram, week to week, definitely out this week with a mid-foot sprain. They're saying it's not a Liz Frank, but I don't know, fingers crossed it ain't a Liz Frank, because we've seen what that's done to a few guys this year.
I'll be honest with you. As soon as I hear stuff like that, it goes back to the Greg Olsons and these big men that cut and run. All my hopes of Evan Ingram are about gone.
Yeah.
It really does. It just sinks it quickly.
Yeah, Matt Ryan looks like he's going to give it a go. Jacoby Brissett's still up in the air, although there seems to be optimism in Indy that he'll be all right. So, I don't know. That's about it.
And the best thing that the Colts have going for them is they have Miami this week.
That doesn't hurt.
Probably be prudent to set Brissett one more time. At least give Hoyer a shot.
Yeah.
You're leading. You may win the game.
Well, the Steelers have a good pass defense. He threw that bad pick, but he threw 3 touchdown passes.
Yeah.
He led them down the field to win the game before Vinatieri laces out Dan. Yanked one.
Right.
About kicked it out onto Wiley Avenue. I couldn't believe that.
Never really kicked footballs.
No.
Doesn't make that big of a difference.
It can't possibly make that type of difference that we saw, right? Adam Vinatieri just had to blow it, or maybe that's a...
Well, they did show a close-up. It looked like he hit about 3 or 4 inches behind the ball.
Yeah, it did look like my 9-iron went the way he kicked that ball. Yeah, I'm sure it makes a difference in terms of the rotation of the ball, the flight of the ball. I don't think it causes it to go 45 yards to the left. It can't possibly. I think
4 feet off the ground.
Now, what it could be is, special teamers, kickers are weird, right? And so he's coming up, he's doing his run-up, his walk-up, whatever you call it. He sees those laces in. He might have just freaked out. These guys can't handle things like that. Probably more mental.
I'll be totally honest with you. I've played golf for years, and good golfer. I'm not bragging, but I was a good golfer. And when I was putting, I'd put a mark behind the ball, set it down with the logo, like Titleist or whatever.
Oh, you were that guy.
Set it on the line that I wanted to hit it,
Mm-hmm.
And that was just a habit. And, I didn't like walking up on a tooth footer
And just tapping it in?
No.
Yeah.
Nope. Put a mark down, turn it,
And I think when you kick a ball for a living, and as
Right.
Ace Ventura taught us, the industry standard is laces out, and you step up and the laces are in.
The laces are in.
This is all you do for a living is kick that ball with the laces out. It'd
Right.
probably throw you out of whack. I go into my 9 to 5 in the morning, and all the the monitors on the bottom and the keyboards on the top. I'll probably freak out too. I don't know what I would do. So I'm guessing it's that. I don't know. That would be an interesting question. We have any kickers we could get on and see just how much difference laces in would make?
We'll have to look into that.
Let's do it.
I would love
Let's
to.
find us a kicker. All right, Rick, week 9 in the books. What are your takeaways?
Well, I started to talk about it, but it was one of my takeaways, and it just occurred to me. Players can be traded in mid-season. Players can get benched in middle of the season. Why can't coaches be demoted or benched?
Where are you going to send them?
Well, I'm suggesting that the Steelers grab Ken Wisenhunt as OC right now.
Oh, I'd be for
Randy
that.
Fitchner, I don't know what he could do. Either go away or you can be the shoe polish coach or something. I don't know. But the offense is just stale. This I don't know if it's all him, if Rudolph is not – I just don't buy that Rudolph's not comfortable heaving the ball downfield.
It's all he did in college.
That's all he did.
He was fearless, and he threw a lot of picks. But I watched him in person. We'll come into Heinz Field playing for Oklahoma State. I left at halftime. It was 100 degrees that day, first of all. It was early in the year. But all he did was drop back, throw it as far as he could, and wait for James Washington, who they're now teammates again, run underneath it. Now Pitt didn't have quite the secondary some of these other teams are playing. But that is who he is. This dink and dunk stuff isn't who Mason Rudolph is, so it almost has to be scheme. And it makes sense for a week or two when he's just coming in not prepared, but he's been starting for a long time now.
He's been starting since what, week 2?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, cut him loose. I want to see what this kid can do because, number one, the reign of Ben is about over.
Yeah, he says 2 or 3 more years, maybe next year.
He could come back and not be able to throw, for all we know, and then come June, I got to have surgery on my elbow again.
Yeah, it could be.
Whatever, I don't know. But we have to decide, or Steelers have to decide is Mason Rudolph going to be the next franchise quarterback? They certainly don't have any confidence in him.
They don't seem to have the faith in him to be that. I don't know if he can because I haven't seen him run an NFL offense yet. Now, I guess what we don't know, and maybe we'll find out later, is he not running it due to lack of ability, or do they have the shackles on him?
Right.
I'm starting to believe they have the shackles on him, but the longer this goes on, my belief in that wanes, right? I'm starting to think, all right, either they're seeing something in practice, or he's not taking the chances being designed for him, and he's just –
yeah.
And look, it's working. Right now they're winning football games, so – fine, but you can't do that for the next 10 years.
No, but what happens if the Rams come into town and strike quick?
Right, exactly.
And all of a sudden, now go win us the game.
Yeah, he can. He hasn't been given that opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, or maybe he will. I mean, it would be interesting to see. It's kind of like, getting back to the Nick Foles thing. I mean, I was excited about him actually getting his gig on a fairly quality talent-laden team as opposed to the Rams under Jeff Fisher.
Right, yeah.
And, with Philadelphia, he did fine. I'm just excited to see that. And I think they need to do something with Rudolph. Say, okay, you're our guy. I mean, look, Ben's gone for the year. I mean, they should have sat him down. Look, this is your team.
Yeah.
Simple as that. And maybe they did. I don't know. But, I mean, it sure doesn't look like it scheme-wise.
No, and it, it was brilliant. We gave them credit when they had to start Duck Hodges, and it worked in that. They
had no choice.
And won them a football game. It, with Rudolph, you've seen glimpses where he's made good throws deep. You saw a couple of them, last week. One to his boy, you know what I mean,
right.
James Washington. But it's just such a far cry from what their offense is, and I just don't know, did they just say we're going to go conservative and let defense win games, which, to be fair, 3 weeks in a row has been the case, right? But I don't know. It's frustrating as a Steeler fan, I can say that. It's hard to watch.
Well, it is hard to watch, but it's just I mean, it's concerning to watch for the simple reason I don't know what their plan is. Yeah, well, Ben will be back. I mean, is that the whole mentality?
I think it is. It's just finish 8-8. You know, after you make that trade.
And were the Steelers 2-0 when Ben went out? No. I mean, they got destroyed 33-3 against the Patriots.
That's what's more concerning for me. This team goes 4-4 down the stretch last year to miss the playoffs. They come out and just get blasted by New England. Now, maybe Ben was already having the elbow issue and we didn't know it, but Ben Roethlisberger hasn't been good for essentially a year now, a calendar year at this point,
right?
Maybe more. So was he on the other end of it anyhow? You know, maybe it's something should have been addressed last offseason, but perhaps they believed in Mason Rudolph, and maybe they've seen something that they don't. It's really hard to say. You know, unlike a lot of other cities that are more fun to pay attention to, the Steelers organization doesn't let much out. You don't really know.
No, it doesn't. And it's interesting that Rudolph didn't take over the second spot till this year in training camp.
Right.
He was behind Dodds.
Right.
Who they eventually released.
Yeah, who he beat out in
exactly.
The preseason.
So there's no long-term belief in Mason Rudolph.
Doesn't seem to be.
No, I agree.
No, he's behind. What was the other dummy's name who went to the XFL? Who he was behind. It doesn't matter.
No,
Who cares?
It really
All right.
doesn't.
My first takeaway, Rick, I was excited to see, and I think it's going to continue. I think Mohamed Sanu is going to be a PPR beast for your fantasy squad going down the stretch. You know, coming off a week where he had 10 catches last week. You know, 5
right.
the first week where he kind of just showed up in town 45 minutes before the game started. Goes out and has 10 catches. And when you look at what the New England offense is and how it's changed versus what it used to be, you got no running game to speak of. Sony Michel hasn't been very good. You have Gronk's obviously gone. You have no tight end play. James White's been either nicked up and or kind of ineffective. He hasn't been in that role. You know, obviously Julian Edelman's going to get his. There was really no second piece in that offense all year. You bring in a Mohamed Sanu. I don't think he's going to have big yardage games. I think you're going to see a lot of 8 for 65, and, you know, you're hoping he gets in the end zone.
The old days with Troy Brown.
That's a perfect example, and I just think – you know, you're going to see in a PPR, he's become a reliable guy. You can already see 2 weeks into this thing, Tom Brady trusts him. They're going to have the bye week coming up. I think he's just going to be a PPR monster going forward.
I agree. All right, I mean, here's something. I got to ask you a question.
True.
Did you ever make a statement, then later kind of backtrack because you were wrong, and then you only to get the feeling even later that you were actually right?
Fortunately, no, because I am such an arrogant big mouth that I will double down when I'm wrong. And if I end up being right in the long term, buoy for me. But even if I'm wrong, I'll argue I'm right till the death.
I'm usually that way, but I tell you what, that's how I'm starting to feel right now about the Chargers again.
Oh, you got one game, turned it around for you.
2 in a row. They've won 2 in a row. And, I mean, they gave Green Bay a beatdown.
Yeah.
And, you know, that was quite impressive. Phil Rivers threw 288 yards, no touchdowns, and they still destroyed the Packers. This defense is still 8th overall in the league. That's pretty stout.
It is.
And Mike Williams actually woke up a little bit. Melvin Gordon's starting to click. I'm just starting to get the feeling that this offense overall at 28th is going to do nothing but go up the rest of the year, and they're a real legitimate challenger for the playoffs.
Yeah,
no doubt about it.
Well, and look, that's the wild card spot,
or the division. I mean, and the division.
AFC's wide open. I think if we get 100% healthy Pat Mahomes back, I don't think they're catching Kansas City. But
I wouldn't think
8-8 might get you the second wild card in that pathetic AFC this year, and I still tend to believe Buffalo is going to come back to the pack a little bit too. So I think their spot is up for grabs as well. Yeah, it's interesting with the Chargers. You know, that win is very impressive against the Packers, and you can't take it away. I don't know if I laugh at or I'm swayed by Aaron Rodgers' assertion that they started partying on the plane and they didn't quit till the kickoff of that game. I have a hard time buying that.
I do too. I'm sorry if it was a plane trip to Miami and you got beat, maybe I'll believe that. But playing the Chargers, who obviously at 3-5 weren't what everyone expected. But I think Aaron Rodgers has been around long enough to know that Phil Rivers, he's not coming just to play games. He's coming to win a football game.
Yeah.
And he is too. I just don't buy that.
I think the big piece is going to be Keenan Allen. He's been bad. I think he's banged up. Yeah, he was it 2 weeks ago. You could see he was dealing with that hamstring, and he was trying to play through it, and he was falling down on all of his cuts. I don't know if it's just that he hasn't been healthy. I don't know what's going on there. If Keenan healthy, yes. If Keenan healthy gets Allen, or if Keenan Allen gets healthy going forward here, you got Derwin James coming back, I believe, next week, they're saying. So they're adding pieces just internally. They were so beat up. You know, we'll see a lot tonight, right, with this Raiders game. They could kind of dispatch Oakland right here, right now. You know, with a healthy Patrick Mahomes, I don't know that they can catch Kansas City for the division. But I don't see any reason, to your point, this team couldn't go 9-7. That'd almost guarantee them a wild card spot in this AFC. And then who knows? You know, we know what Phillip Rivers can do. We know what that offense can do. And if they get healthy pieces back on that defense, you know, maybe it's not time to pull the plug just yet.
Yeah, I mean,
or tonight, Oakland could smack them, and then we'll double the other way next week, which is fine. We do that.
The thing about Keenan Allen is there's obviously he's not right. I mean,
something's off. Yeah.
Well, he's been dealing with that hamstring. He hasn't been over 61 yards in the last 6 games and has no touchdowns. He only had 4 targets last week against the Packers, and bully for them. They could put the beat down on the Packers, only targeting Keenan Allen 4 times because Melvin Gordon and Hunter Henry and Mike Williams all picked it up. But I'm like you. He needs to either be benched and get 100%.
Get him healthy.
Get him healthy. But, you have Travis Benjamin. He's gone.
Yeah.
I don't even know who they have. I'd have to look just to see who would be the starter without a Keenan Allen. But we saw that the other couple weeks ago when Keenan Allen was gimping around visibly with that hamstring, was still getting the targets.
Yeah.
Which, and they're just going to have to pick it up. Mike Williams, you really have to get a lot more out of him. Simple as that.
Yeah, he's going to have to step up. I think he is that next piece. All right, Rick. I hesitate to keep bringing this up, but it bothers me so much. I go to bed every Sunday and Monday night absolutely furious about this. That National Football League needs to roll back, undo, or start enforcing this pass interference review rule now. It needs to be NASCAR, NFL style, where you fix it right now. I don't know what their plan was. This was clearly an overreaction.
I don't know.
Exactly. This was clearly an overreaction. And now, normally I'm a Saints fan. I love Drew Brees. Alvin Kamara, so fun to watch. The city of New Orleans always looked like it was so cool and fun, and they were kind of the underdogs until Drew Brees came around. Now, I hate the entire city of New Orleans. I can't stand it whatsoever because all their whining and complaining and kvetching and billboards and marches and suing people for the love of God over this pass interference call. The first question I ask myself when I see all of this stuff, the one Monday night, although inconsequential in an inconsequential game, you watch the defender run right through the back of a receiver before the ball gets there. They go to review. It couldn't be more obvious.
Yeah.
Whichever 900-year-old official Monday Night Football has on looking at all those things says, yeah, that's clear and obvious, but they're not going to overturn it. And boom, that's just exactly what happened. You have to wonder if what happened in the NFC Championship game happens again in the playoffs this year. You think them dummies are going to overturn it? I don't have any confidence they will.
You know what they need? They need to like you said, get rid of that rule, bring back Ed Hockley's guns.
Right.
And they say, Ed, we want to challenge that. And he goes, no.
No. Yeah. Well, I'm not going to overturn that.
And they're going, oh, okay, it's Ed.
Well, and that goes to my second point. The fact that this has been going on, basically, I think they last overturned one, was it week 2 or week 3? This has been going on since then. National Football League coaches who continue to throw these challenge flags should be fined, should be suspended by the team. This is ridiculous. What Mike Tomlin did at the end of that game, he could have, if Vinatieri hadn't botched that, really used those 2 timeouts and had a full complement of timeouts where he challenges 2 pretty much back-to-back. I think 2 and 3 play. I mean, Mike Tomlin's a different case. Somebody in the Rooney family needs to take away the challenge flags from him. He can't be trusted with them. He can't handle them. He doesn't know what to do with them. They need to bring in a dog or something and give the challenge flags to them, and they would do better with them.
You bring in Ken Wisenhunt.
Right.
Then Randy Fitchner's your red
Just
flag
give him the red flag. Give him a TV, an iPad, and the red flag, and that can be his job till the end of the year when we ship him out of town.
Right.
And that's perfectly. The fact that they continue to throw these timeouts away, knowing it's not going to be overturned, but it's an complete and absolute debacle, and it has to end. The league looks ridiculous. The officials look ridiculous. The coaches look ridiculous. Let's just go back to having bad calls. I would so much rather have that, where I can sit around and complain, oh, the Steelers would have won, but they didn't throw the flag on that obvious pass interference. That's been going on in sports for 100 years. But when you create a mechanism to fix these obvious mistakes and you arrogantly refuse to do so, that's embarrassing. A blown call. Now, the NFC Championship game was real egregious and embarrassing for the league. But by and large, week over week, game over game, these things happen. Fans can live with that. You are humiliating yourself and spitting in your customers' eyes with this nonsense every week.
And the worst part about that New Orleans-Los Angeles game was it was the only game happening.
Right, exactly.
And you can't tell me that some high NFL official wasn't watching this game, couldn't have got on the horn and said, whoa, wait a minute.
And that's all that needs to happen.
Right.
Bring another official in. Put him in the booth. Say, there's no more challenges. There's no more review. There's no more this or that. I got somebody.
You know what would really be cool? Get that extra referee and have him riding around the boogermobile. Flying around over the stands and everything.
Oh, get him like one that hovers.
Exactly.
But when something that egregious happens, have somebody with the authority just to say, hold on, you dummies. That was pass interference. We're going to call it. And here's the other thing. One more thing on this. When did, in all the time you've watched football and all the time up until this replay, when did seriously hinder the process of catching the ball become a thing? Look, I guess we kind of intellectually knew that, hand fighting was allowed, but now they're using that as their excuse for not overturning things. Well, yeah, he contacted him. We didn't seriously hinder his ability to catch the ball. When did that, you just made that up. Right. When did that become a thing?
I don't know. And it just gets worse and worse. And you know what even gets worse than what we're talking about is not only the challenges are ridiculous, the plays don't get overturned or they don't get caught. Every pass play, what's the receiver do when he stands up? Yeah. He wants a flag. Yeah. You got to have a flag. Every play.
Yeah.
And I mean, they bring a lot of this stuff on themselves, and then they complain about it. And as fans, not only are the fans being robbed of, most of their afternoon over one stinking game,
right?
But the quality of the football, there's the momentum shot. We've talked about this for the last 2 or 3 years. Every time there's a big turnover,
a score, we stop.
Everything, and there's no momentum. You can't even get them to rush up to the line to get a thing up because the red flag comes flying out. And then we stop the game for another 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's gotten bad, and they need to do something. And like I said, frankly, I would like to give New Orleans back to the French. I think that resolves a lot of this. Maybe we move the Saints to London, because obviously Dean Spanos ain't going there, so maybe we send the Saints to London.
Yeah, the
done
London
with
Saints.
Yeah,
I don't think New Orleans would permit that.
We got the L.A. Lakers. We could have the London Saints. Who cares?
You know, and that's the L.A. whatever. Yeah, I mean, the Chargers are nothing but the Clippers of the NFL. Why would they? Now they're talking about them going to London. You know, I thought they were going to Vegas.
No, Oakland's going to
Vegas.
Vegas.
Oakland's going to Vegas. The Chargers are talking about going to London.
They were going to rent from the Rams. That's the plan for next year. And then there's stories going around that the league would like the Chargers to go to London. I don't know why they don't want. I guess they wised up and don't want Jacksonville anymore. But Dean Spanos came out and said the F word 8 times in his denial of that.
Good.
So
good. I mean, you know, why doesn't Dean Spanos, get a stadium built in San Diego?
Why doesn't he
go back home
Yes.
and forget all this nonsense about Los Angeles and everything else? Because you know what? I don't know how long the Rams will be there before they move on somewhere else.
Yeah, they'll fill that place every game next year because it'll be cool. It'll be a scene, man. It'll be the place to be, and then it'll be over. They don't want pro football in L.A.
No, they left Oakland, went to L.A., and then they went back to Oakland. The Rams left L.A., went to St. Louis. After the Cardinals left.
Right.
And then they left St. Louis, and now they're in Los Angeles.
Well, nobody wants to go to St. Louis.
Now they want another team in Los Angeles that couldn't hold the Rams before.
Right. And now they put 2.
Right. And now San Diego doesn't have a team.
Right.
Oakland doesn't have a team. And what part of the country has a big enough metropolitan area where the Chargers could relocate, other than San Diego? Then
San Antonio's brought up a lot. It's football crazy.
Then you have Houston, big. Dallas.
How close are Houston and San Antonio? Because Dallas is way over on the other end and up north.
No, I think Dallas is in the middle.
Yeah, but it's way
San Antonio.
North.
Well, yeah, and San Antonio is out west, I believe.
No, that's El Paso. I think in San Antonio.
I'll pull up a map. This is interesting.
Yeah, I'm sure this is what people tuned in for the geography of Texas we're getting right now. I think if it's close to anything, San Antonio would be closest to Houston, but I don't know that. I don't know anything. I'm an idiot.
Well, that's true. San Antonio, well, yeah. Okay, It's
down near the border, that old Alamo nonsense.
Well, it's almost directly west of Houston, but it's about right in the middle of the state.
Okay.
So, yeah, it is closer to Houston than Dallas is. El Paso is the one that's way out west.
Yeah, they're the one. They're right along
But is
New
there
Mexico.
no other bigger cities?
I'm trying to think where else it could be.
I mean, Seattle has one.
Bozeman, Montana.
I don't think Bozeman's big enough, quite frankly. But anyway, let's move on.
Well, I think we've got it all covered.
Ball goes to
right on cue after the Asylum called him out. Zach Ertz comes right up the bat. 9 grabs, 103 yards, and a touchdown.
I told him to do it.
I know.
I hope it's the real deal. I hope finally they realized, all right, this Dallas Goedert thing's cute. You know, this throwing it for Nelson Aguilar to alligator arm it is cute, but let's throw it to the guy who will catch it and sometimes put it in the end zone as well. I'm hoping this is a harbinger of things to come. It was some lean weeks there, and you heard me whine about it for 15 minutes last week. So yes, excellent. I had him on the list as well. I'm gonna be positive too. My first one's going to go to Jamison Crowder, Rick. Mainly, this is so I can do a victory lap, as I had him as one of my top starts last week on the deep waiver wire pickups. 8 catches, 83 yards, and a touchdown. I just bring it up because there was so much excitement, and for me included, I won't lie, for Robbie Anderson this season, and the chemistry he has with. We thought he had with Sam Darnold until Darnold started seeing ghosts and remembered he wasn't a very good pro quarterback. And so Jamison Crowder seems to fit that mold. When he's been healthy, when the matchup's been right, he's been a PPR monster. So and I love it. 8 for 83 and a touchdown in a game where you lose to the Miami GD Dolphins. That for anybody else, that would be 16 catches for 250 yards and 4 touchdowns. To be able to accomplish that with a team and a quarterback and a coach so pathetic as to lose to the Miami Dolphins.
I agree.
You stink.
Mr. Mitch Trubisky.
You keep stealing all my.
Well, I mean, it's hard
that
not
obvious. I know.
I mean, he has thrown touchdown passes in only 2 games this year. He had 3 against Washington and 2 garbage touchdowns against New Orleans. Yeah, you can blame it all you want on Nagy, which I think he is terrible, but Mitch Trubisky is just awful and makes nothing happen out there.
There's just nothing else to add. I mean, that offense cannot move. You have a championship defense who's on the field so much.
They're not looking like a championship
defense. You hear
defense.
people complain about this defense isn't what we expected it to be. Well, Mitch Trubisky's 3 and out. If he can get to 3 downs without turning the damn ball over, they won't run the football. This team is on the field 40 minutes a game, this defense. Yeah, Trubisky's just been – and look, it is always so easy to look back at that and mock it, and half the time it annoys me. But when you look at Mitch Trubisky and you just think, my God, the Chicago Bears traded up to make sure they got Mitch Trubisky before Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson. It is just unthinkable. The kid, he was put in a bad situation. I almost feel bad for him. He is so bad at this point. You almost feel guilty making fun of. But, yeah, big old smelly sock. He's been awful.
It's not making fun, but let's be real. I mean, playing the Philadelphia Eagles, who have been more than underwhelming themselves this year, he had 125 yards.
Yeah.
No touchdowns. And, you didn't have any picks, but, there's just – and they're not rushing the ball either.
No.
I mean, Montgomery had a pretty decent day. They're finally starting to work him in, but they don't utilize Tariq Cohen at all.
That's the one I can't understand.
I can't either.
He is a game changer. Even Mitch Trubisky can get him the ball somewhere in space. You would think offensive genius.
Mason Rudolph's getting it to Jalen Samuel and James Conner.
Yeah. Offensive genius and not an idiot, Coach Nagy, has to be able to scheme something up that let's put the ball in this guy's hands some way with a little bit of space and let him make plays for my impotent offense, and they're not doing it. It's dumbfounding. Absolutely dumbfounding. All right. Sony Michel, Rick. I hate these guys that are touchdown dependent, and he has become completely that. 18 yards last week, one catch for 12 yards, and it might have been his first catch of the year. I'm being facetious, but it feels like it. I just don't understand it, Rick. Boy, he looked like last year New England had finally found their guy. Look, you knew you were always going to lose snaps to James White and Devin. There'd always be somebody weird around. Every now and again, Baldwin would pop up. Look, it's the Patriots, but it looked like they'd found a true back, somebody you could almost rely on in New England. And coming into this year, I put this less on the New England thing, less on the hoodie, and more on Sony Michel. I have never seen anybody go down more easily on first contact than Sony Michel has this season. It is damnably frustrating to watch. It is nothing after contact. He gets touched, he hits the ground, done, over, move on to the next. And he's going to do it, and I'm going to bench him, I'm going to cut him, I'm going to trade him, I'm going to do something, and he's going to have 7 touchdowns the week after you do it. But big old stinky sock, and he's been tough to swallow at this point.
Yeah, and New England is confoundedly being New England again.
Yeah.
You just don't know what to do with them. Okay, Gronk's gone. They're going to have to pass more to the backs, or they're going to have to run more, or whatever the case may be. Strategy that you've got it all figured out.
Right.
What guys are going to be big on New England, and it's not. Of course, it's Edelman. But throw your hands up and everybody else in a bucket and pick out who's next.
I think Sanu, as we talked about earlier, might be that guy now, at least in a PPR, I think. But
I agree.
The running back position, because I don't think you can play James White comfortably at this point.
James White is a notoriously, this year, consistent flex play. He's going to get you your 13 to 16 points in a PPR format. And, I mean, you pull him up, that's what he's averaging. But that's not what you expected from him from last year.
He's being drafted almost as a third receiver, second RB type of deal, and that kind of hasn't panned out. It's tough to watch. Their offense is just frankly, not all that dynamic. Now they're going to win the Super Bowl. They've done it with defense all regular season, so you know they're going to average 45 points a game in the playoffs. That's just kind of how New England rolls, but very boring, very vanilla offense right now.
Yeah, it is. James White, 104 yards rushing with a touchdown, 44 catches, over 400 yards receiving with another touchdown. Pedestrian for what you wanted James White to be this year.
Yeah, I think they're
a good flex play, but that's not why you drafted him this year.
I think we maybe overdrafted him. I think in the back of our minds, if we didn't say it outright, it was, no Gronk. James White's going to get those tight end catches. You're going to get those Gronk catches. I think what we consistently underestimate is Bill Belichick is not going to find a way to replace what he lost. He's just going to do something completely different and find ways to win games. We got to stop with New England. Let's give them to the French too.
Okay, we'll call it
them in New Orleans.
France.
New France. Yeah, they can have that.
All right, what are we on here? Positive or stinky?
Yeah, whatever you'd like to do.
Game ball goes to.
Well, you're in a good mood today.
24-36, 288 yards and 3 touchdowns. And the Dolphins got to win, baby. Ryan Fitzmagic gets a game ball. I mean, that's just Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's going to do that. He does not care.
He could do it for 2 or 3 more weeks and then throw 8 picks.
Yeah, exactly.
At another time.
Exactly.
He gets on runs.
And with what he has at that team, he's doing Ryan Fitzpatrick things.
That's what he does.
And he gets a game ball.
He's fun to watch, too.
Game ball goes to.
Devin Singletary, Rick, finally got him very, very involved in the offense. 95 yards and a rushing TD, 3 catches for 45 more yards. Look, they've got a great defense. They've got a playoff caliber defense there in Buffalo. It's not the most dynamic offense. I like Josh Allen. I don't think he's the guy to go put it over the top. They're going to have to run the ball. Look, I love the crypt keeper that Frank Gore is, and he's never going to retire. My grandkids are going to be talking about they can't believe Frank Gore's still getting it done. But you have a dynamic playmaker who every time he touched the ball, it went for 20 yards. But for whatever reason, that dope would only let him touch the ball twice per game. It feels like they're getting him more and more involved. And Frank Gore is a nice complementary piece. It needs to be Singletary featured and Frank Gore kind of the hammer complementary piece, not the other way around. I hope they figured that out now. I'll be watching that game intently this week, hoping they give him the opportunities again like they did last week, because this kid is a baller when they get the ball in his hands.
Yes, he is. There's no question about that. Oops.
You stink.
Now, look, I know the Jets stink.
I agree.
But playing the Dolphins where James Conner ran for 145 yards, Adrian Peterson, 118, Zeke, 125, and Mark Ingram, 105. Not only did the Jets lose, but a great running back should have been the bell cow carrying this team on his shoulders. Le'Veon Bell has not been over 70 yards all year long, and he had 66 against Miami. Look, I know it's a team effort, but great players make great plays.
Right.
He's doing nothing. Did Barry Sanders play on great Detroit Lion teams? They were abysmal.
Quarterback's name's Scott Mitchell.
Yeah.
Bad.
Yeah.
Rodney Peete. He had Rodney Peete as his quarterback.
And Le'Veon Bell gets a huge pair of stinky socks.
It's been rough, and we'll just leave it at that. It's been rough. All right, last one here. I had Alshon Jeffrey written down. I had Keenan Allen written down.
I had Keenan Allen written
down. But I think for the first time in the history of this show, I'm giving the stinky sock to one Richard Elroy Briggs, Esquire III.
I don't know Richard Elroy Briggs.
As he has become involved in such instances of malfeasance and skullduggery as the commissioner of the Caveman Football League, either taking advantage of a much, much less intelligent human being, that being the best side of it, the worst side in clear collusion as he goes out and obtains Saquon Barkley this week for the very expensive price of Stephon Diggs. Stinky sock to you, to Mr. Tony Ryan, your hero, who is in tank mode and handing in a caveman championship to Rick Briggs. Stinky sock.
Everything you said is fiction. It was just a deal.
The crowd seems to agree with me.
You.
They're displeased with your malfeasance. I don't know why you think that's the period on the end of every sentence. You think that ends the argument and you were right. I wish you could see this. We got to go video. I'll be saying anything that Rick doesn't agree with. He'll just hit that giggle and look at me like, see, I told you. It's maddening.
It's
maddening.
Your ghost.
Well, it is. But that's not an argument. That's not the final point to every argument.
Well, how about this then?
All right, man, this shit's over with.
All right, so you're not going to discuss it. Oh,
no,
my Nats cap
your
just
Nats
fell
hat's fallen. You are just...
Hold on, I got to hang
You
my
are
Nats.
wrong. You're wrong. Dead wrong.
Shame on you.
Okay,
Rick
we got a game to pick.
All right, what do we got here? Thursday Night Football, the Chargers.
The Chargers against the Raiders.
Laying 1.5 on the road in Oakland. Oakland back in Oakland for the first time in about a month and a half now.
Yeah, exactly. I tell you what, I had a little takeaway on the Chargers. I'm going to ride Phil Rivers. I'm going Chargers 31, Raiders 26. I'm going to have the Chargers win and cover.
I really struggled with this one.
I
Are
did
we
too.
going to have to accept at some point the Raiders are better than we thought they were going to be?
I think we already have. They're
And that
4-4 for crying out
And that if
loud.
Antonio Brown wasn't a maniac, this may be a playoff team.
Right.
A team that could make a good run in the playoffs. They're playing a good brand of defense. Derek Carr's really stepped up. You know, what Darren Waller has done, what Tyrell Williams done. He's the new Chris Carter. All he does is score touchdowns.
Could you imagine Ty Williams and AB actually with his head screwed on playing football?
Unbelievable. It would have been unreal. But I agree with you. You brought it up in the takeaway. I think the Chargers are on the come right now. You know, they are rolling a little bit. They got it going. They got a little bit of that swag back. I hate these Thursday night games. I hate a road team on a Thursday night game, although I assume, a little longer for Phil Rivers and whatever that weird mobile thing film station he rides around in it. It's not a long run,
No.
I presume, from L.A. to Oakland. I think this is a close game. I'm going to take the Chargers here. It's just if the Raiders make me wrong again, I'll just pick them every week from here on out because I've lost more on Raiders games this year. I'm going to say it's a field goal game, but Chargers by a field goal, so I guess I'm taking the Chargers and laying that 1.5.
All right.
Is that it?
That's
We get
it,
outta
baby.
Here? All right, well, let's shut this thing down. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget tomorrow at Asylum Football, asylumfootball@gmail.com to be part of Mr. Rick Briggs' mailbag. Get those in tomorrow. Check out everything at Full-Time Fantasy, at Full-Time Fantasy and fulltimefantasy.com. I just blocked on it there, and so this is a good time to stop. Until tomorrow, we'll see you.
Take care.